Welcome, everybody. Let's give everybody a chance to get in. Hey, nice to see you.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome, Kristen. Hi, Leslie. Gabrielle. We've got a few other people who are likely joining us, so we'll kind of stall a little bit and give them another minute or two to come in. Not much longer. Let's get started. How are you all today?
Good.
Good. Where is everyone from? I know this a little bit.
Boston.
Boston? Wow.
And you,
I lived
Leslie?
there for years. I lived there.
Which
First-
part?
Well, I went to BU undergraduate, and then I went to law school in Cambridge, and my uncle lived in Concord, Massachusetts. So
Okay.
Boston's close to home for me.
Cool. And I forget, where are you now?
Me?
Mhm.
Bethesda, Maryland.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And you, Kristen, I think you said, but I couldn't hear.
I'm near Houston, Texas.
Oh, nice.
I lived in San Antonio and Austin for a number of years.
And San Antonio is where I grew up.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Cool. We've almost got Robert here. Hi, Robert. We're just sharing where we're from, giving a couple more people a chance. Yay, James.
Hey, Steve, where are you?
I'm in Malaysia.
Wow.
Save the coolest
So
for
it's
last.
11 o'clock at night here.
Oh my God.
But
Such
the
a
rain has
trooper.
stopped, so that's good.
Yeah. And Robert, where are you from? Might be still getting it all onto the audio. James, you said UK, right? Whereabouts?
I am, yes. Steve, do I hear another British accent? Are you originally from the UK?
You do, yes.
Oh, well, I thought
Yeah.
I was going to be the furthest afield today, but clearly not.
You are
No.
going to be our test for calling from the UK to get Americans to vote. This might be a good time. Before we give one more minute for folks to show up, and I'll share my embarrassing European story, kind of directly relevant. So about 4 days before the 2016 election, I was in Germany at a climate summit and talking with young adults and saying things like, "Oh, I know it looks bad, but it's really not going to happen. That who you think is going to get elected, it's going to, because we care about the climate and people of all backgrounds." And then I came back and it wasn't quite what I had expected. I'm sure those young adults still remember that conversation too. so I really appreciate you all coming here today, because I think getting
Okay,
folks out who do care are key. Yeah,
I can talk now.
great.
For some reason, my unmute button didn't work. It flashed through. I couldn't. Anyway, I'm here now. I'm from San Mateo, California. Robert White.
Oh, cool. Yeah, old stomping grounds for me. I lived pretty much everywhere in the Bay Area but San Mateo. I think my parents might have lived there. Okay. So we may have other folks joining us, but I'm going to plunge right in. Some of you, this will be boring because you've heard my little intro before, but welcome to our Elders Promote the Vote All Ages phone banking session. It's a joint effort of Elders Climate Action, Environmental Voter Project, and Elders for Sound Democracy, which is also a project of Elders Action Network. We're going to start by giving you a chance to hear from our very special guest. And at the end of his remarks, anyone who wants to understand more about our project and needs training on our phone banking tool, Hub Dialer, will stay with me to get started on that. If you've phone banked with ECA before, you can just go straight to calls whenever you're ready. And we'll gather back together at about 9:05 or so, in case anyone wants to share stories or anything like that. At that point, I'll also give you a little bit of information about the postcarding effort that's about to start up. And then let's see. So we're going to be calling into Georgia today for the Georgia State Primary and Municipal General Elections. If you have any friends in Georgia, tell them about Elders Climate Action, because I went looking this morning and found a total of 2 people who are in our system from Georgia. So I think we ought to do a little outreach ourselves so we can get some phone making folks from Georgia. Anyway, I'm Pam Vergun. I'm project manager of Elders Promote the Vote. I have this interesting background mix that includes being a PhD in sociology, a storyteller, and someday get back to hiking and taking pictures and things. I also happen to be the mom of 2 of the federal youth climate lawsuit plaintiffs in the US, Miko and Isaac. So before we go to our guest, let me give you a quick overview of this project so you'll know more about it. So this work is led by the Environmental Voter Project, begun in 2015, and it takes a long-term evidence-based approach to getting the electorate changed. We reach out to the folks who have already indicated that they feel climate is the most important priority, but they are not voting. There are 13 million Americans like that, which helps to explain some of our election results. What we're doing is this science-based approach to building the power of the environmental movement. ECA, or Elders Climate Action, ECA for short, has alone reached more than 1 million voters since we began our partnership with EVP in 2017, which incidentally was when I heard about it because they invited my daughter to speak, and she was super impressed by the folks she met at Elders Climate Action. Wasn't always the case in those days. We've contacted over 9.5 million voters, getting them to turn out for local, state, and federal elections. The voters we mobilized are those who think that climate is most important, but they haven't voted at all or very rarely. And what we do is we contact them for every election, no matter what, even if it's just like for the water district, to try to get them so they become super voters. And 1.5 million of these folks now are voting in every election. Thank you so much for being part of this election. We've now worked on 1,500 elections since the project began. Legally, Environmental Voter Project and ECA must remain nonpartisan. We don't endorse or talk with voters about specific parties, candidates, or even policies. For making calls, the great thing is we're contacting folks who we already know care about the climate, and we're using messaging that's been tested in randomized controlled trials, kind of the best of sociology. So we know that this nonpartisan messaging is most effective in turning out these unlikely voters. Our goal is to make every elected official, regardless of their party or what they're running for, to know that they have to be a leader on climate if they want to get and stay in office. So this brings us to our special guest. Our guest today is Steve Willis. Steve is an engineer and innovator with decades of experience providing solutions to environmental problems for large-scale industries, even those oil and gas folks, as I hear. The start of COVID lockdowns gave him pause to think carefully about climate solutions, what was needed, and what it would take to get there. This led to collaboration with the Green Stories team to produce the No More Fairy Tales anthology for COP27. 5 stories from this anthology have been developed into a complete novel called Fairhaven, a novel of climate optimism. Steve continues to work on large-scale climate solutions, currently developing a carbon sequestration mineralization process which can be deployed at the million-ton scale. I haven't had a chance to check in more about his sequestration work, but I hope to at some point. Our paths crossed thanks to LinkedIn and his willingness to get on a call with me from Malaysia. As you may have heard if you got on the call early, yeah, it's midnight there. It must be something more fun to do locally, as I hear, and be with us. We're so glad to have you. And I love that when I emailed you, Steve, asking for a title to include, instead of saying what I expected, which was doctor or engineer or something like that, you wrote back, can a good story help fix the climate crisis? So I give you fellow storyteller, Steve Willis. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve.
Hi, thank you very much, Pam. And thank you all for doing this phone banking thing, which I'd never heard of before. And it sounds like a really cool idea. So I can understand how that might work. And it sounds like a top quality climate solution. So thank you all very much. So Pam said I could talk about anything that I wanted. So I will do the easy thing and tell you about the picture on the front of the book. So the Fairhaven is a book that I've written with a lady who lives over in Hong Kong. And the cover of the book is the based on my experience working on the offshore gas platforms in Malaysia and Thailand. So in tropical waters, the waters are super productive because there's a lot of life and a lot of sunlight and so on, and the coral reefs can be very abundant. But like in many parts of the world, they've all been trawled to destruction. So there's very little life in much of the South China Sea, which is the waters here. But around the oil platforms themselves, they're like super abundant, absolutely bouncing with sea life. So you'll see small fish and big fish and whale sharks and dolphins and turtles and sea snakes and all sorts of stuff if you stand on the rail and just look for a while. So these areas are super productive, and many of the platforms are now quite old and coming towards the end of their life. And a few years ago, I was working on a project with some guys who'd done a small, what they call rigs to reefs project, where they'd taken a small piece of a platform and brought it towards the end of one of the dive site islands. And there it did really quite well and made a very nice site. So we had to think about how to make it better. And what we're proposing to do is use pieces of old oil rig, but also extend that with concrete blocks and large pieces of rope and large floating buoys to make thick pretend oil rig legs. Because from a fisher's point of view, a piece of structure is a piece of structure, and it doesn't matter whether it's an expensive oil rig or not. So we were doing this right up to the point of COVID and got most of the ducks in a row, and then COVID arrived and the whole project stopped. So we did something else during COVID instead. And now coming out of COVID and with the decommissioning project restarting, we're having another go at doing those projects. So there's a bit more money around, there's a bit more enthusiasm. So touch wood, we'll continue those meetings and get a real project into the water in the next year or so. So we had some calls about it last week, and I've got some more set up for next week. So with any luck, we'll make some real progress this time. So thank you very much. Is that enough, Pam? Shall I stop monologuing now? Yep,
Try to. I apologize. That's great. I was attempting to send someone who's asking for the calling information in the chat. So, but apparently it looks like Zoom has put through another innovation in which they don't let you do stuff. So I'm working on that. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to ask Steve? Well, I'm trying to put this in the chat for everybody. Yeah, I know that was perfect. Okay.
It's all right. I don't bite.
Sorry, what?
I don't bite. I'm quite gentle, really.
Well, I want to just thank you, Steve, that, some of us, we think about, helping with forests and other things, and we know that the oceans are so threatened by heating, water temperatures and acidification. And your project for revitalizing the wildlife in the ocean is very inspiring.
Mm. Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because here in Malaysia, we have a set of really contrary challenges. So Malaysia is one of the countries with most palm oil. So 17% of the land is palm oil now, and it was never going to go back to forest. And you kind of just have to live with the reality of that. And we've also been working with the palm oil companies to improve their practices so that maybe one day they actually become carbon negative operations again. So that's what's happening on the land. But within the sea, of course, the coral reefs and the one thing I didn't mention earlier was the natural coral reefs are highly productive, but the vertical structures around the platforms can be up to 20 times as productive as a real coral reef. So there's real benefit in having volume in your habitat and going back and purposefully putting it there, because the trawlers have destroyed all of the little structure that used to be there. And if we're going to get the abundance of the ocean back, we just have to go back and put it back, you know. And the sea is in some ways less fussy about what that is, you know. So if you put some structure there, it gets reoccupied by all the things that are living in the ocean.
That's so awesome. I love nature's. There's a documentary, I'm forgetting what it's called right now, the year the world changed on Apple TV, that talks about how animals basically said, okay, people have left, we're good. Okay. Yeah, Robert. So I think I got the campaign information into everyone. It just took me like multiple tries to get it in 3 pieces. But yeah, go for it, Robert.
Thank you for that, Pam. Thank you for that great presentation, Steve. I was not aware that trawler traffic was responsible for some of the devastation.
Oh, trawlers do an insane amount of damage.
We hear in the States, we hear that it's all due to the CO2, but it's also due to our ever-ending industrial complex trying to sell
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
it's amazing.
I used to live in England in Grimsby, so James will know that Grimsby was one of the big fishing towns in the UK, and it used to have a massive trawler fleet and so on. But they've trawled all of the North Sea, destroyed all the little habitat, and the catchable fish population is 2% of what it originally was. You know, so they've completely destroyed it. And catching fish with a trawler is like collecting apples with a bulldozer. You know, you get apples, but you lose everything else, you know, and it's like, it really is a calamitous process. And it can be done so much better. We just need to, upgrade from hunters to, farmers, as Jacques Cousteau used to say.
So the trawlers
Excellent. Well, thank you.
are strip mining, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, that's not what they think they're doing, or that's not what their intent is, but that's what's happening. It's most unfortunate.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming, Steve. We're going to start with the phone banking. I think you should probably go take the night off. But feel free to join us anytime you're up late. Great. Take care.
Thanks,
okay. I see
All right, take care.
Take a peek at that. Okay, excellent. So we're going to go ahead and say bye to Steve. If you have already done phone banking, you have what you need with us. You have what you need in the chat.